Citizens of the Reject Nation, now that we have Superman, the 2025 movie out, we are going to rank the Supermen from the movies. Now, couple of disclaimers here. There's a couple of live-action Supermen like George Reeve and Kirk Allen, who I only learned about today.
You didn't know about George Reeves?
I mean, I knew about George Reeves, but Kirk Allen I didn't know about.
Okay.
And I want to make it clear that we're not including them on here. We're working with the ones that our generation is most familiar with. So if that disappoints you, I'm sorry. We wouldn't have much to contribute to that either way. And yeah, we're only working with the live action. So there's really only like 4 Supermen.
Christopher Reeve onward. It's a very iconic character, played less than most.
But I think it would be important to shout out some TV versions that
100%.
we really do love.
Yeah.
I really I mean, okay, you can go first. Who's the one you love?
Tom Welling.
Tom Welling's your
Smallville.
jam.
Tom Welling,
Yeah.
like he got it. He embodied it.
What was it about? What was about him that you
He
really
was
loved?
so relatable, and it was still like a guy that had all these powers that never felt like he abused them, and he made me want to be good. As a kid, I remember thinking, man, every kid thinks like, what's it like to have powers? I had someone that in my mind had powers and was still doing good. And like, he didn't not have flaws. He wasn't perfect. And that's why like I've always had trouble with people that think Superman's just perfect. He had plenty of flaws. And like, he sometimes was impulsive. He thought rashly. He like had a crush and acted stupid because of the crush. Like, there was such humanity, but it was such a long time I got to spend with him. Like, a decade on a show is crazy. Like, watching someone grow up for 10 years, you grow up with them.
Do you think he was committed the whole time, or did he ever like wean and seem
Oh,
like
I'm
he was
sure
getting
there
a
were
little
episodes
lazy?
where, but I was a kid, so I wouldn't have noticed. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I haven't rewatched them as an adult, but I know that when I was a kid, I'm sure there were episodes. But it also introduced so many guest stars, so many comic characters I never thought I'd see. And I was always like, man, all these guys that Superman knows. And like, Tom Welling just felt like an in-universe Superman. Like, it was perfect.
I would love to revisit Smallville.
They're so good.
I'm not going to react to it before people ask. I would love to just watch it on my own. All right.
Somebody save
It's such a good song.
It's
That's
so
a
good.
Classic song, man. For me, I would want to shout out Tyler Hoechlin from Superman and Lois. I actually never saw Supergirl, so I don't know what his introduction was like there. But in Superman and Lois, it's called Superman and Lois because that is specifically about him and Lois moving back to Smallville, raising their 2 children. And it's the first time we get a depiction of Superman as Clark Kent being a father, being a husband, and watching a lot of failures and mistakes he makes along the way, while also doing a great job being an actual Superman. It was the first time I really felt like, oh, I'm starting to really see more of like the human side of him. And the reason we're not including the shows on here is because it's kind of like an unfair thing. It's the same way we're in a variation when I hear about Kevin Conroy being put on the list, like who's the best Batman? I'm like Kevin Conroy's an amazing Batman, but there's so much other attributes that go into the live action. And same thing here. I'm like, well, you get so much more context and time to explore that it's not really fair to compare the TV versions to the movie.
2 hours of Corenswet, 10 years of Tom Welling.
Yeah, and then many hours and years with Tyler Hoechlin as well. You know, like, it's not fair. But I thought Hoechlin is amazing, and I totally and with this movie too. What I'll say is that a lot of people are talking about this is the best Superman and Lois version. I'm like, well, if you love a Superman and Lois, the depiction of Superman and Lois in the show Superman and Lois is very, very, very strong. Explores trauma, especially on Lois's end. I think it is an amazing show. I only saw the first 2 seasons. The time I saw it was great, and Tyler's amazing.
An honorable mention for a movie, Ben Affleck.
As George Reeves?
As George Reeves in Hollywood Lights.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Took me a second.
I just love that he's played Daredevil, Batman, and Superman.
It's true. Oh, that's true. All right, man. Well, let's kick it off. Who is your number 4 on this list?
Coming in at number 4 is very tricky because I don't think he's a bad Superman, but if we're sticking to just the movie, I have to exclude his comeback, which was actually him portraying.
Well, what I'll say really quick, another little caveat is the ranking of the Superman is not really a ranking of the movies.
No.
We'll do that separately. But
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to make that clear. Reject Nation, I'm going to interrupt this video just for a tiny bit to tell you that we were so inspired by this movie, it suddenly got our creative juices flowing, and now we suddenly have 3 new inspired tees at rejectnationshop.com. Can't wait to share them with you guys. The first one up right here, Being Kind is Punk Rock. You might have heard a few of us already talking about that theme of punk rock, and being kind is such a big part of the heart of this movie. And I'm so glad that we got Alyssa Be Crazy to design this for us. It is a fantastic representation of the vibes and the fun of this film, and of course the theme as well. Another one that we got, the Kryptone sunscreen from the mind of Aaron Alexander. Artists Joanne and Alyssa Be Crazy combined their efforts here. It is a throwback to that classic sunscreen design, but I feel like it is so emblematic of the type of vibe that Krypto and Superman have in this movie together. And the third one, weirdly, personally, my favorite. Hi, my name is Gary. If you guys have seen the movie, you get the reference. And for some reason, it ended up being my favorite one. I absolutely love it. And I hope you guys love either one of these. If you're able to buy any one of them, it is an amazing way to support the channel, support the artists here as well. You get a lot of weird monetization issues. I've heard many YouTubers probably talk about it, and it is a very real thing. So it's a great way to offset some of it, and hopefully you guys get something in return that you enjoy rocking. And it's the way you become a righteous reject. So become a righteous reject today by buying any one of these tees. I can't wait to be wearing these throughout the year, and I hope you guys can't wait to be wearing them as well. Thank you so much. We're going to go back to the video now.
Okay, so for the actor's portrayal, just movie, I got to go Brandon Routh at number 4. I think his
That's
Crisis...
my number 4 too. I won't,
is it?
Yeah, it's my
okay,
number 4.
so we'll discuss. Yeah. I think Kingdom Come and the Crisis stuff they did was redemptive, but this is just his one portrayal in the movie. It was really difficult because he was trying to take on the mantle not just of Superman, but of Christopher Reeve's Superman.
Exactly.
And so it felt like he never got to be his self. And then he did later, which was, I think the Brandon Routh we all saw. I think the Brandon Routh that audition got to play him in Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
But in the movie, I don't remember a lot of the movie, and that's not a good sign. I remember the airplane scene. I remember crazy Kevin Spacey plot with Kryptonite. I remember like weirdly him being a dad and thinking like Superman's flawed, but like abandoning his child is not Superman to me. Like a lot of the things that I think of as Superman wouldn't have done that. And so that threw me the whole movie. I didn't feel the relationship with him and Kate Bosworth. I didn't feel the chemistry, and Clois is as important to me as Clark. And someone has to be 4. So for excluding the TV stuff, Brandon Routh.
Yeah, I think the reality is he's kind of pigeonholed. He was kind of put in a trap. You know, you can't be your own thing, but also try to be Christopher Reeve at the same time. And due to the context of the movie wanting to be a sequel after Superman 2, sort of, you also get this depiction of him that is like a sad Christopher Reeve. I remember that's what I really recall with it. It's like it's very somber. He's solemn. And I actually kind of like that because not in hindsight, I like it because, you know, when you think about Christopher Reeve, you don't really think about the sadness or the loneliness, even though that part of that is in the performance. It's not as prevalent. And then we started getting these explorations of Superman later on that were more embracing the alien side of him and the isolation side. And I feel like on the big scale, that was the first time we were really going for that. You know, you can make arguments for stuff like Superman 3 or whatever, but I think, or Superman 2 even, but I think when they were really trying to go a lot more, like lean into it, it was with the Brandon Routh version. So I like the Brandon Routh. I think Brandon Routh is one of the better parts of a rather lackluster movie. But yeah, it's like at the end of the day, I'm not really seeing a guy just fully playing his own version of Superman. I'm more seeing a guy. You can't if you're trying to be like Christopher Reeve, you'll never match.
Yeah,
you just
it's impossible.
It's impossible to reach that lid. You got to do your own thing to surpass,
which I'm so glad he got to do.
Or equate to, you know. And so yeah, I think so it kind of stifles the performance and makes it a little stiff at times. Even though I think he's doing a good job. And I like the sadness to this very pretty man in that movie. He's
very pretty.
He's a very pretty person.
And like they're framed like somberly watching pretty man.
That's the thing about him on the Crisis event is that he's very handsome.
Yeah. But when he's young, like looking at the moon.
Yeah, he's like so polished and clean.
Yeah, almost like Edward Cullen-y.
A little
like
bit.
Pretty and glowy.
Yeah, glowy.
Yeah.
I associate glow.
I think of him glowing. Like,
yeah, he actually looks like a glow.
Yeah, there's like a porcelainness. Number 3 for you.
Number 3 for me. I just wanted to go with my heart on this one. It would have to be Henry Cavill.
All right.
Yeah. Who's your number 3?
Henry Cavill.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I think we have the same list.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have the exact same list.
I was like, Greg, we should go back and forth to keep it dynamic and like have it mix up. Cut 2.
Yeah.
Well, I went first last time, so go for it.
It just, that's a performance that took me like a couple of times to watch to really appreciate it. Like when I watched Man of Steel, the first time I watched it, I thought more about the action and the visuals, but not so much Henry Cavill. And I started to understand Henry Cavill's portrayal much later on, and I see why a lot of people were able to emotionally connect with it. Like, I appreciate the angle of a guy who is isolated, a guy who doesn't know where he belongs, and finding that loner aspect. I think that's even the new Superman movie addresses that, but in a different way. So it's kind of cool when you compare the two, because you're looking at the biggest distinction between them is how I think Jonathan Kent is. which makes
nature nurture, man.
Which makes how Henry Cavill turned out and changes how David Corenswet turned out, because Costner in that, to talk about the Henry Cavill version, Costner in that is like, I love you, but you got to hide who you are.
Yeah.
No, don't save me in this tornado moment, and it creates, and so I understand the depiction of him being like, oh, I have a hard time accepting myself and accepting who I am when my father, I feel like, doesn't even fully accept me. So I understand the psychology of the approach, but it is such a stoicism that kept me at a distance that I appreciated the movie more than I did connect to Henry Cavill, if that makes sense.
100%.
And I would say the same thing with BVS, like observant, appreciated, and I liked where it was going. Even with the Justice League version, I was like, oh, we're starting to get more of the classic Superman, and you can see the arc trajectory going in there, and he looks like Superman. So I like that you can get a guy who looks like Superman, but brings this like dark pathos to it. But emotional connection to me is everything, and I never quite connected to him, even though I love the Man of Steel movie and I love the BVS Ultimate. Actually, I love those movies, but as a character, I'm not quite connected to him.
Yeah, if we're talking character, it's hard for me to separate my association with the comic character if you're playing a comic character, and that's why I say it a lot, and people get really mad, but I think it's an incredible Elseworld because I don't connect that portrayal to the comic character I love, but he is a Superman to a lot of people, so I don't think they're wrong. But my read of something is going to be different. So I think your point about isolation is really strong, and I think there's a definite linear path between people being angry at Henry Cavill not continuing to play Superman with that feeling of being seen and being isolated. I think the same people that want to lash out online are isolated and they don't feel like they have anyone to connect with, and that's this portrayal. So it's very effective for that mindset. But I grew up in a giant Irish family, and I had lots of people that nurtured me growing up. I was the first grandson. I was raised on a mountain. I moved to the city. I was always around a lot of people. I didn't have that hide yourself. I had like, we're gonna film you doing stunts, and like that was a different thing. So I feel like I never connected to that Superman, but the people that do, I don't think they're wrong. I don't think that's not the character, but I don't think that I was able to ever find my way into understanding him or caring enough for him for all of the alienness not to feel like that was the whole thing, which is the action, which is the spectacle. So it feels like I'm watching a movie, not living within it. It feels like I'm observing a character, not caring about a character. And so when that grows, into BVS and into Justice League, I understand that, Zack Snyder might have had like a 10-year plan that was going to lead to the Superman that I know and love. The fact is, it's hard to start with a deconstruction. It's hard when you start with a character that is so impossibly powerful, but you don't feel like you have any way into understanding. My favorite performance of Henry Cavill in Superman is in Black Adam. And that's really rough because like that was the moment I was like, yeah, it's happening. And like, I've talked about that. I even said that's my favorite moment in Black Adam. And it's like a 30-second stinger. Like that, I was like, they did it. I see it's happening.
It got me excited at Henry Cavill returning
100%.
And
I think that's also part of the sting is like the people that weren't on board then got to see, and then they were upset because again, that, Henry Cavill hadn't been rehired. It was a moment. It was a handshake deal. So I think Henry Cavill in an alternate universe has played an incredible Superman, and I think there is a lot of merit, but that's not the Superman that I connect to.
Well, a big part of how you connect to a Superman, too, is not the individualistic performance. It's how watching an actor connects to other characters.
Yeah.
And so not like as much as I love those movies, I don't feel jack shit when it comes to him and Lois. Like that is one
that
of the
bathtub scene is one of the most confusing scenes for me.
They just don't have chemistry. They have no chemistry.
And they're both good actors.
They're both great actors. I loved Henry as another different stoic brooding guy in The Witcher. Thought he was amazing.
Man from Uncle. Charm
on
incarnate.
A very different side. Yeah. Freaking and Fallout. I thought he was amazing in Fallout. So I love Henry Cavill generally. But the part of those movies with Superman in particular, like the only time I really felt it was like Kevin Costner and like young Clark Kent. I connected at times with like when he's like punching Zod and he's like he went after my mom. Like it's parts with him and what's her name? Is it not Diane Keaton? What's her goddamn name?
Diane Lane.
Diane Lane. Yeah. With him and Diane Lane, it felt a little bit more. But yeah, because of the fact that the relationships weren't there, it makes me not really connect as much. Even though I see the context and I see the intention.
Yeah.
It's the heart that I'm that I am missing there. Because, like, yeah, even when he killed Zod, I'm not much of a Superman purist, or I was like, no, or a lot of people were. But yeah, I mean, like, I appreciate his performance there, where he's, that anguish scream that he has. I appreciate a lot about it. Yeah, ultimately he would be number 3 for sure. Yeah.
Number 2, Christopher
Reeve. That's the one. Yeah,
I know that's going to be potentially a hot take because he's a lot of people's Superman, and rightfully so. Like, we would not have this Superman culture, we wouldn't have comic book movie culture without Christopher Reeve. I think he absolutely embodied both Clark Kent and Superman. The scene of him standing up and correcting his posture and fully like that is one of the most beautiful. That's one of the most beautiful moments. I think, is it Superman 1?
Superman 2.
In Lois's apartment when he takes off his glasses and he's going to tell her.
Oh, that's in 1. Yeah.
So that's one of the best.
I think he does it in 1. Okay, no, but he reveals himself in 2.
Then you see the posture more.
Yeah, and he does it in front of her.
But that 30-second.
But yeah, in 1 I remember that. Yeah,
that's like one of the most iconic and for good reason. Like,
and I think
deserved.
I'm pretty sure that influenced comics.
100%.
That is the rare part of where a live action portrayal actually influenced the way they decide to. Like, when I was reading All-Star Superman, I started getting that idea. When you're looking at Clark and how he's like hunched over, and, he's a little bit, and I'm like, oh, and Christopher Reeve really was the first to do that distinctly, and I was wondering if Christopher Reeve influenced that.
There's a ton of drawings from the late 70s, early 80s where he just looks like they just drew Christopher Reeve. Like, he is very influential, and I have no negatives for his performance. Like,
no.
I think he is exactly that time Superman. I think there's a reason, like, people are like, in a photo of him in nature is just Superman is real. Like, that is true.
Yeah.
And then all of his help with, disability and like what he ended up doing after he played the character, like the Superman he actually was when the cameras weren't rolling, you feel that on screen.
Yeah.
Like, you feel his goodness. You feel all those things in his portrayal. That is all there. I just got to talk about my number 1 next, but number 2.
That's with Christopher Reeve. That's how I feel like that's how I kind of feel about Tony Robbins at times. Where, like, you're so grand, you're so big, you're so something else that is so I admire you. Like, you're so traditional, and there's like something kind of patriotic and uplifting. Yet I'm like, I don't feel like you're attainable whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's like the weird part with, as much as I love like life advice from Tony Robbins, is how I feel with Tony Robbins. Like, I don't feel like anyone could, how could anyone possibly match whatever the hell you are?
It's like The Rock's workout. Like, you're like, I can save 24 hours in the day as The Rock, but The Rock's got like a nutritionist and a chef, and like Christopher Reeve just had that as a person.
Yeah.
Like, he just had this aura where you're like, I can't.
Yeah, he does, and he does embody that larger than life, like, other being here. But that, with number 1 being David Corenswet, that is the part when I expressed that sentiment in James Gunn, which I have expressed to many people before I even got offered the interview.
Yeah, same to me.
Yeah, so when I said, like, this to me, what I said to James Gunn there, and what I've said to others, is that phrase, "This is my Superman, this is my Batman," is what people say when you're growing up with that version. Like, you were talking about Tom Welling earlier, like, that's my Superman because I grew up with that. And as much as I've loved so much of the versions we just talked about, I never felt that emotion to say that's mine, because it's a character that people are like, oh, you want to be like him, the hope feeling, but it feels unattainable when I'm like, yeah, but he's a god,
Yeah.
I can't do it. And David Corenswet pierced that. He broke through that. He feels like a human being, and it's kind of, whereas Superman is often external and then we go internal, that feels internal and then it's representative externally on his actions.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like this version of David Corenswet is the most inspiring one, because it made me go, oh, I self-reflect to want to be a different person, or keep personal development to be a better person, then I'll do better actions in life. So again, internal, external, whereas a lot of times with Superman, I would feel like, well, if I had Superman's powers, then I could be the good guy that everyone's saying he is. you know? Where this was like, oh, and this is just making me want to be a better person, and then maybe I could do more good externally.
I like that, because that is both authentic, but a different experience of how it's received. Yeah, that's interesting. And I also think the relatability to David Corenswet is very of today's era. I was thinking a lot about how, the online commentary and how that obviously wouldn't be a part of any other Superman, but how that makes us relate to him and how human that is today. But it wouldn't have been human even 25 years ago. Like, it wouldn't have been a key part of it. And I think that this David Corenswet not only speaks to 2025 in the same way that Christopher Reeve spoke to 1978, but I think also the villain of a story makes the hero more relatable. And I think that the way that I thought Tom Welling was Clark Kent was because of Michael Rosenbaum's Lex. I identified with these two guys growing up together and what that betrayal would feel like and how that would be like just heartbreaking. I love that Lex Luthor is, this monster of a corporate overlord that's willing to throw money at a problem because he's envious and like jealousy. Because I feel like in 2025, we have the tools to have more time, and the way capitalism is going, we don't get to use it. We always have to do more and do more. And we're always moving to the finish line, and we always have to make more money. And like retirement seems so out of reach, and like we're all aspire. But it's because of this like hustle culture of like, do more, always do more. And I love that Lex felt like that. I love that Lex felt like a tech bro, but not in a cheesy way. It felt like a guy that had accomplished something, but he had never filled the void that he felt like Superman had filled. And that made me relate to Superman because the idea of like, he's not done like growing. Like Superman's not like a finished product, but he's got a root. He's got a wholesomeness. He's got a certainty. And it was his parents. It was going back to Smallville. It was how he was raised. It was that relatability. And this every single scene on the farm, I almost cried. I did cry some of them, but like I almost cried every time they showed that dynamic. And that's so unique to show a world that feels so today, but also so larger than life.
Yes, I agree. The older I get, the harder I have to push back against being a cynical human being. Like I think when I was younger, I wasn't really as hyper aware of negative and positive thought thinking, but I understand the power in optimism. And my default is not optimistic. Like I can be hopeful if I'm like really in game mode and stuff, and I can get shit done and I can accomplish a lot of goals, but optimism in a very cynical world is the part that I like. That being kind is punk rock moment. That was it was just a line exchange, and that made me cry. Like there's something about that specific exchange.
Did I tell you about that with what happened in DC Studios?
You mentioned it. What happened?
So we film our episodes in batches sometimes with like availability of talent. We shot the intro and outro to the episode that's probably already aired with David and Nicholas 2 days before I saw the film with you. Like when we all went, I 2 days before I'd filmed an intro, and I was talking about the importance of the conversation we'd had with David, but we had the David conversation and then we shot the intro outro, but I still 2 days later was watching the movie, and I had flippantly been discussing how important it is that people find hope and how hope is counterculture. And I literally said, and that's why Superman's punk rock, and we need Superman to be punk rock right now. And then I did not know that was in the movie. Like, that's such a specific phrase, and that's such a specific idea, and that's kind of the theme of the film, but I got that from David.
Yeah.
That's how much he's Superman. Yeah. Like, I literally, in talking to David, would never have had that line pop in my head. I never would have thought that. I hadn't seen the film, but the way that David describes Superman, he is so full of hope. He is so full of this shucks character. We were talking at the trailer event, and David is a big dude. He's like 6'3", 6'4", maybe 6'5". I don't know. I'm 5'9". He's tall. So, like, he's over 6'3", and he's a big dude. And we were talking, and he made a joke about his brother being 6'8". And he like gestured as like a bigger person. Yeah. And he accidentally bumped into someone walking by, and they like went to like they were spilling their water. Yeah. And the whole conversation, I immediately saw Clark Kent apologizing. Yeah. I didn't see this dude, this actor. I saw like, ooh. And then when he came back, he was like, he took care of it. And I was like, that's Superman. Yeah. And I don't often feel that when you get the in person, it translates 200 feet.
Yeah.
I think Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool both ways. I think Downey Jr. in person and on the screen. David Corenswet has that thing where in person you're talking to this person that is as good and wholesome as the character, but in a modern way. He doesn't feel out of time. David doesn't feel like, you meet people and you're like, you belong in the 50s. Like they feel off. He feels modern, but hope.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He feels like a guy can actually have I'm talking even his version of Superman. It feels like a guy can have a conversation with. Like the way he reacts to even situations with crypto and stuff, like you really get a sense of a guy who grew up raised on a farm. Like, I don't really get that sense with anybody, not even Christopher Reeve, honestly. Like Christopher Reeve feels very like polished and a bit presentational, like sincere and weirdly sincere, yet like there's a certain cadence, to how he comes across. Where there's this impression that I get that I would just be looking up in a way, but there's a distance. Whereas like Corenswet's, I feel like would meet the average human down at their level.
100%.
Like I don't want to talk too much about it because I want to save something for the spoiler review. Is the kaiju thing? Like when the kaiju, in case people haven't seen the movie, I won't spoil too much. When the kaiju's first introduced, it's introduced as this little baby creature. So when it cuts to the next thing with the kaiju, as an audience member and as a vegetarian due to moral reasons, I immediately was like, but it's just like a baby animal and it's just doing an animal thing and now Superman's going to kill it. So when I see him like, oh, Superman doesn't want to kill it. Superman is trying to like protect it. He's trying to protect everyone around him and protect a squirrel and everything. Like they keep calling it out because life is just so precious. That was another moment of like, that's my Superman.
Man.
That's for sure my, like the fact that he even sees that, the fact that he's an alien makes it easier for him to see how everyone is human. Everything is human. Every life is human. Not the human mindset that we are human and we are better than all other living creatures. That living creatures are all equal. And so yeah, I mean, I could just go on and on about why he's my favorite Superman for a reason. And yeah, he's relatable, and I want to be him.
Dude, like David Corenswet is so inspirational, and Superman on screen is so inspirational.
Yeah, so that's our ranking.
That was fun. I did not expect the same exact list.
Glad we could have a discussion. Normally, ranking videos, I know, are just like bam, 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 bam. But
let's continue the conversation in the comments. I mean, I'm sure there'll be some tempestuousness, but I'd love to know how people feel.
All right, thanks, guys.